gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, coming to you live from our respective home studios. It is Joe Remele. It is John Case. It is the Gas Up, and welcome to show number 2. Joe, how are you? Number 2.
We made it. Let's talk about serendipity. We were kind of reading each other's minds at the exact same time when we brought it to the forefront of, we definitely need to talk about this on the show, which is Chappelle's latest release on Netflix. So 846 was released, I believe this week, not too long ago. So by the time this airs, this might be about a week from airing, and we both kind of gravitate towards it right away. Chappelle being, if you're of a certain age, Dave Chappelle is like the man. I mean, he's the comedian. He, not only that, even when he's talking and he's not saying anything funny, it's captivating. He brings perspective of race, and he's very fair, in my opinion, to everybody and every race, and he doesn't hold back, and his show was the same way. So watching 846, I've listened to it, I've watched it. I know you've done the same. You've given it a couple runs. What is the most thought-provoking part of, and by the way, so if you're listening and you want to know what the heck we're talking about, you can watch this on Netflix. It's on YouTube. It's pretty available on the different streaming networks. But what was the thing that really captivated you, really grabbed a hold of you during that? Because it's only about 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's about 20, I think 27 minutes total, something like that. I'll be honest, and I did watch it several times actually, and every time that I listened to it and watched it, I picked up on different things. But to me, not so much the content, and I do want to ask you a couple of questions as to the setting. We'll get into that in a second. To me, it was just the emotion. Honestly, the raw emotion that you could see.
Raw.
So
the whole
raw.
thing is so raw.
That's to me
it's like he's in his backyard just ranting.
100%. That was the thing for me. I was like, dude, like this dude sounds like he's hurting. This dude, it's unlike any other I wouldn't even call it stand up, right? It was more like a talk, maybe.
It's not much of a show from a performance standpoint.
Not at all.
He's wearing joggers and it's like he's not dressed for the occasion.
Mm-mm.
He's sitting there hunched over on a fireplace looking hearth, and he's
got his little notebook. He's got like his little, he's got his cigarettes in his little notebook, and he kind of peers into it every now and then. But
it's like, man, we're more squared away when we record our little YouTube show than this guy is for seemingly the event of the summer. I mean, it's not competing with much, but I mean, super raw for sure.
That was the thing. So for me, it was obviously the subject matter we'll get into too, but it was after having watched it a couple times, it was definitely that rawness, that emotion, and it almost seemed like, although he had a general progression that he was going to follow, he kind of bounced around a lot, which is,
I don't think he stuck to it. I think he had
that's
a plan,
what I'm saying.
And he just burned it as soon as he went on stage.
I would agree.
You know what? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to talk about that right now. And then he's like, yeah, I am. And because I'm Dave Chappelle,
he kind of came.
I don't have to ease into this. I can just go.
Because if you've ever watched his stand-up, he's very smooth in transitioning from topics to topic. He's very he's very eloquent in the way he kind of moves and goes about bringing in different subject matter and different things. So his stand-up is super polished.
More
right?
so back in the day, like when he was up and coming, he had to be very kind of, I don't want to say strict, because he floats around a little bit. Yeah. Even in the older stuff, but as he's made a name for himself, it's like, I know I can dress this down and it'll still be good because people trust me. I'm a trusted source.
Right.
So, I mean, my thing was, I guess the thing that he pointed out to me that I wasn't really as knowledgeable or prepared to hear, and it certainly stuck with me and it will stick with me forever now, is how close we actually are today to slavery. Like he talks about his great-grandfather born a slave and ends up being a political activist and ends up being invited to the White House by Woodrow Wilson in South Carolina right after a black man was killed over a $30 dispute. Like the way he teed that up, talking about how we're not far removed from this. This is my great-grandfather. He was born a slave. His grandfather's wife was the name that his father called out on his deathbed when he died. Like that was so powerful to me to think, like, he heard his great-grandfather's name. This man is not a distant memory. It's a real person that he thinks about and knows stories about. William David Chappelle was his name. He was named after him. And I was like, man, that just like gave me chills to hear that. Like we're 3.5, 4 generations removed from, African Americans being born as slaves. That his great-grandfather's generation had to navigate through slavery to whatever gain that they were able to, like anything that they achieved in their lifetime was amazing, right? If they went from slave to anything better than slave, that was a miracle in itself. And that really hit hard to me because, as somebody who doesn't really unpack that on a daily basis, because I don't need to, and that's my call it whatever you want, my gift, my privilege, I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to sit here and think about, well, what did my great grandfather, how did he get out of the struggle? That was just so powerful for me.
Well, I mean, kind of tangentially on, I think it was, I want to say June 10, June 11, was the anniversary of interracial marriages being allowed by the Supreme Court here in the United States. 1967 was the year. So if you think about it, 1967, what is that? That's somebody's grandparent.
That's one generation
That's
away.
one generation. So think about that. One generation ago.
I mean, my mom was alive.
It was illegal for people to marry if they were of different, let's just call it colors, right? Let's just to simplify, right?
Sure.
That blows my mind. The fact that, and people seem to, and that's why I say we have made great strides, right? We have had progress. We have moved forward, but I don't think you can ever discount the fact that not very long ago, for all the progress that we've made, you can turn around and say, wow, things were way different and not that long ago. To your point of his great grandfather being a slave, right? Well, for not even a generation ago, it was illegal for interracial couples to get married. It's just one of, or even now, like same-sex couples, things like that. So I'm sure that down the road, when we look back and we'll say, oh my God, like where were we then and where we are now, that juxtaposition always kind of gets people thinking. I think very much so. Dave was able, Mr. Chappelle was able to bring it together of like, wow, guys, like we talk about all these great strides, but don't ever forget that not that long ago, my great grandfather was a slave. My great grandfather had to like earn the right to be free. And so
we're so young, we're so new at this as a nation. Like we haven't been at this that long. So it's kind of like looking at the stock market. Like anybody could tell you as an investor, if you look at the stock market over a long period of time, it's always a good investment, right? If you're looking at a 30-year run, it's good. And I think you could say the same thing about activism and civil rights and all that. But like we're crashing on those fronts right now, or at least it's being exposed that maybe we've been crashing for quite some time. It's like a lagging economic indicator of how racial inequities have been for years. But overall, things have been getting better steadily, right? If you look at a 30-year trend, it's same-sex marriages are now
it's
legal.
a rising stock, right? It's a stock that's performing well.
Ultimately, the long game, but it's like that. But that, like I said in our last show, on the last segment of our last show, like that's not good enough. We only have the time that we have, right? I mean, I don't know what you believe. If you believe you reincarnate, or if you believe you go to heaven, or whatever you believe, you still only get this time on earth as this human being to put your stamp on it. And if it were all to end tomorrow for any one of us, we wouldn't be happy with where we're at right now. So, but I guess the positivity takeaway for me with that epiphany of holy crap, like 4 generations ago, somebody in Dave Chappelle's family was a slave.
Right.
Was that gives me a lot of hope that we could turn this around, and in the next 10 years be looking at all the victories that we had from this point forward. Like, okay, we have significant police reform. We have these 8 laws that they kind of put in place to govern on a federal basis every police department, so that there's not one department that does it really well and another department in a different neck of the woods that does it terribly.
Not so good, right?
So I mean, that gives me a lot of hope in a situation where it certainly feels like the world's falling apart on any given day right now. And another thing that really struck me was when he talked about the last time that a big wave of protests happened, and then policemen got killed and all that. And he ties it back to sports, which is always something that I can relate to. He ties it back to Kobe's last game and how he watched
the 60 points.
60,
right.
And that was certainly, I could picture myself literally in the same position as he was, like flipping back and forth. Like that kind of grabbed me, because I was like, he was me. Like I was flipping back and forth. Like I know the world's ending and everything's burning and people are dying in the streets, but like Kobe's about to drop 60. Like, and I guess it's okay. It's okay to say that, right? Like it's okay to say we were watching both of those things simultaneously, and they were equally as impactful on us, especially being from the greater LA area for all of my life. Like that was a significant moment in quote unquote LA history. And then to basically lose Kobe and to go through this Oh, and by the way, we went through a pandemic already this year, and it's not even
still going. Yeah,
we're not even
still
halfway
going.
through the
Yeah.
year. Like
Still
this,
going.
I mean, I don't know. It just kind of, it was like, dude, if we're still, you know, smiling every day through all this, then we can get through this. Like we're gonna kick ass the rest of this year, and put a good finish to it.
I did have a question for you specifically, because it's funny, because although the content really captivated me, right? Like I said, the rawness, the way he expressed himself, the fact that it looked like he was jumping from one thing to another and then coming back. It was like the production side, based off of what you do kind of professionally. What did you think of the fact, the kind of the show venue, kind of the logistical nightmare of you're putting on an open air performance? People are being spaced out. I think they didn't have more than 2 chairs per little area. I think if you look at the video, you can see that
significantly spaced.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like there's a
no
lot of space.
Everybody, so if you came with 6 people, you were like
spaced out.
Two.
Everybody had a mask on. I think everybody had a mask on.
I think they gave out masks. They had branded Chappelle.
Is that why everybody had the branded? Okay, got it.
I think they gave, that was like part of your. By the way, that's going to be table stakes for any live event from here on out. For a while,
masks.
It's like provide
your own
standardized mask, because you can't say, oh, well, your mask doesn't cut it, or your nose is exposed. Like you can't run somebody out of your event because their mask doesn't fit your. Mm-hmm. It's like saying, well, you can't hear, and we don't have assisted listening devices on, and so you can't consume this event. Like, no, you have to have an assisted listening device. If somebody shows up that's deaf to an event, you have to have an out. You have to have some way to help them consume or watch the show. So it's the same. It's gonna be the same with masks. Like you have to have the right PPE, if you will, to get through the show. But what I thought was, like, I think the goal of this was really to watch Dave Chappelle in his backyard cutting it up. Like, I think that was the vibe. So they didn't really have a high standard of production.
I mean, short. It was, like I said, 27 minutes, right? It was like boom,
boom.
Boom.
And that's what Netflix put out. We don't know if he
true.
Actually did some jokes, and then he decided, well, this wasn't socially relevant, or this watered down the message, and so they cut the jokes out or whatever. It's hard to say. I suspect that he didn't have people come out for 25 minutes of content, that he really did a whole show. He did like a Chappelle bit, and then
gotcha. But they just sliced it up and put this.
I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe we'll get some second wave of like, oh, here's actually the jokes that he did.
Because I mean, it seemed like he put it. I mean, the timestamp on the video says June 6th. Today is the 14th. So
they cranked it.
So they like that was like they put that together.
But if it was just like segment 1 clip, we put out segment 2, and you did 3 segments. We only put out the second one or whatever. I mean, certainly doable in the post-production. But another takeaway I had was, like, people just want to see this right now. Like, this is so needed. And it really was overly cautious the way they did it, right? Everyone kind of drives out in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, it looks like a big.
By the way, how many places have you been to so far where they took your temperature?
Just like I said last show, the one restaurant.
The restaurant.
Because even now, I went to another restaurant just to pick up food, and they let me in. I had my mask on, but they let me in. They didn't really make too big a deal of that. So I don't know the temperature taking thing, if it's just kind of unilateral, or if it's just kind of place by place. Yeah, exactly.
I'm amazed though, because we went to a furniture store, and they took our temperature there.
Oh wow!
And this was like a huge warehouse. Like there was we weren't within 20 feet of anybody, but except for the temperature taker guy. But I'm just surprised. I guess I'm surprised when people so willingly let people take their temperature, but like they get all weird about other stuff, about other rights being infringed. Like, sometimes with data.
Well, this temperature thing is new, man. Like I'll be honest. Like I've seen some of the things that they're doing in other countries and it's like super invasive. Kind of
contact tracing.
Well, there's a contact tracing, but like I've seen certain things that I believe it's in China where they have like full on like thermodynamic technology where they can just read your body. Like they don't even have to ask you.
What if they insisted on a rectal thermometer? Like you went somewhere you really wanted to go, and they're like, dude, the only way you're getting in here is if you're taking this thermometer up the ass. What do you say?
I think it's going to be like, how much do I really want to be in that venue? Like how much do I want to watch?
Like there's a situation where you'll do it?
Like do I want to watch Kevin Hart that bad? Like it is. Is the new Kevin Hart special that awesome that I have to put myself through this? Maybe I have to. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I really don't know if there is anything that I would consider. But I mean, I'm sure there's some fans out there that would be like,
they make a thermometer that goes there. That's what scares me. Is like,
I mean, that's
if
the
you're
old
willing to
school,
submit
bro.
to the scanner one, then maybe someone's.
I mean, those were like, I believe that was a long time before the little laser that they can point away from a nice safe distance.
We're way off topic, of course, but no, I encourage people to watch this Chappelle.
Absolutely.
Thought-provoking. You know,
It
kind of sent me down a rabbit hole of like.
Did you start looking at did you remember that shooting, by the way, the Dallas shooting, the officers? Did you recall that?
Oh, yeah.
I remember watching that real time.
Stories. Well, the Chris Dorner story happened in my
the
backyard.
Chris Dorner was even, that was
he brought up Chris Dorner, and I was like, and I was telling my wife, like, do you remember this? And she was like, oh, I don't really remember that. I'm like, this dude was like.
There was like a week-long manhunt or something like that,
and
right?
He went up to Big Bear, which is not far from us. And I mean, they like he said in the show, they switched cheesed him. I mean, they burned that dude out. But I didn't know the whole backstory of why he was flipping out. I just knew that he flipped out. I didn't understand like the plot of how he got to that point. And it says so much about where we are right now. Like the fact that all those injustices happened to him and he felt like there was nothing else he could do, but, you know, basically just turn the gun on officers and start, hurting and killing them and their families. But that's a little heavy, but
yeah, no, well, but I mean, I think it's one of those things that I think that's why this Chappelle show is so impactful, right? Like he's highlighting things because there's a lot of people that, and I don't want to harp on things that we've already covered last week, but there's a lot of people that are like, guys, this is just a couple of bad apples. This is just, certain instances. If people would just do what they're supposed to do, none of this would happen. And it's like, guys, no, the institution itself needs to be revisited. We created this. Mm-hmm. And then we have the ability to change it. Once something no longer serves its purpose, then you have to reconsider why it's there.
And extremists are saying, well, let's just defund. Let's just basically hit the reset button.
But that's going completely the other way. Like the idea isn't, this isn't an on and off. This isn't a computer. This isn't zeros and ones, on and off, yes or no. Right. There's a lot of gradient there, right? There's a lot of gradient there that you can work with. Like you still need police. Like I wholeheartedly believe that. You can't just have a lawless society, right? So, but at the same time, you can't have people that use the badge in a way where it's to take advantage of other people. That's where we kind of should draw the line. And especially when it comes into people dying. Like just yesterday, there was a gentleman that died in Atlanta at or is it Friday? I believe it was Friday. Another one of these incidents happened. So it's like
Carl's Jr., right?
Wendy's. It was a Wendy's.
Oh, Wendy's.
It was a Wendy's. But at the end of the day, it's like we have to revisit this idea of when is it okay to use lethal force? When is it okay to infringe on somebody's rights? When is it okay to go in a direction where it's like, is everybody being treated this way? Are just certain people being treated this way? How are and who polices the police, right? Because if it's just a system where they're supposed to keep track of their own, well, they're showing that they can't.
I was going to say, I'm guessing it's really difficult to make that decision if you're the officer, because you know everything that's going on right now. You also know there's probably a 90% chance that somebody's filming this exchange. Mm-hmm. And if you make the wrong decision, that they're going to burn your town to the ground and you're going to be in jail for murder. And yet still people are making the same mistakes. So it must be difficult. The only conclusion
it's a tough job
in my mind that I could come to is this is hard. Like
100%.
It's not easy to defend yourself. And you're also a representation of yourself and your family. And you got to keep yourself healthy. And you're going into these situations where it's late at night and it's dark and you're looking in cars. And like, I could just only imagine how difficult it is to be on the other side because they keep screwing it up. Like, and it's not all, I can't believe that it's all bad apples in the sense that it's all people that got the badge just to go kill people in the streets that they don't like. It's got to be miscalculation. It's got to be human error. And that's the horrifying part is like these people are on their best behavior right now, probably, hopefully, right?
And even
the
then
vigilantes in the department are probably sitting at a desk right now doing desk work, hopefully, if you're the supervisor.
Think, right?
I mean, sit John Wayne down for a while and have him do paperwork while we get through this.
Right.
But they're still doing it. So it's got to be it's more than systemic racism. It's also just it's a freaking hard job. And like I saw a meme that was like, well, nobody wrote a song called "Fuck the Fire Department" or whatever. Like, you know, that's but like that job, I don't want to say that job's not as hard. It's certainly at times harder, but the decisions you have to make when you're fighting a fire,
I didn't hear that before.
Are not necessarily like you're always going to save the victim in that case, right? You're never running into a fire and having to decide, do I need to kill the person in front of me or save them, right? It's usually like save, you know, in almost every case. So not to diminish anything about what a firefighter does on a daily basis, but policing's hard, man. And you know, it's going to be hard to fix that part of the job for sure.
But I think and to kind of wrap this up, I think Dave said a key thing where he said, I'm willing to take a back seat on this one, right? I'm willing to let you guys be the driver and be the voice and keep doing what you're doing. And I do think that there is some value to that, because I think at one point he asked, like, who wants to hear from a celebrity at this point? And everybody's like, nah.
Who wants to hear what Ja Rule has to say?
Yeah, exactly. So
definitely nobody wants to hear from Ja Rule. That's for sure.
It's one of those things where I think the voice of the people has to be heard, and I think he was a great conduit to bring that to the forefront and to sort of encourage people, like, continue to let your voice be heard, and do so within the context of, like, this is what's happening, this is the things that we have seen, and sort of buttoning it up with, this is how it makes me feel, like I'm torn up about this. You can hear it in his voice, you can see it in his person. It's like he's definitely, this has affected him. This has genuinely right. So, and hopefully by people seeing that, they're more apt and more willing to explore what avenues we have to try to fix this, so that we can make it better for everybody down the road.
Yeah, he mentioned Don Lemon, and I was watching CNN when Don Lemon went on that rant.
I was too.
About, right? A lot of us were, because they had all the coverage of everything.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, afterwards, not during his, like, well, celebrities need to step up and say something, but, like, you know, maybe a day later. So I was thinking, what celebrity do I want to hear from right now?
Right.
Obviously, no one's going to ask me. They shouldn't. But I would say Chappelle. Like, if you asked me before the special, who do you want to hear from right now? Who can make art out of this, if you will, like do something thought-provoking and true and honest and raw. And I would say, he would have been in my top 3 for sure. I want to hear from Chappelle. I want to hear what he has to say. He has the perspective. He's been through situations. He's totally okay with making fun of his race, other races, you know, people that weave through the you know, race debate or politics or whatever. So it was really cool to watch. You know, I could watch one of those a week if you put it out. Right. So you know, Mr.
Highly
Chappelle,
encourage everybody to check it out. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, hey man, you know, let's wrap it up. I think it's a good show, and we're learning and we're developing and we're getting better, and the plant's going to grow, and whether it's figurative or literal, plant, it will grow. Maybe that should be our thing. Like, tune in every week to see how much the plant has grown. Right. We'll do like a time lapse on the plant.
I love it. All right, man. Well, hey, it was great catching up with you. Can't wait to do it again next week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to us here on a little show. If you do like what you're listening to, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to get those new emails letting you know that we have new content up. We will be putting this show on a variety of different platforms, so be on the lookout for that as well. I think, like we talked about earlier, at some point, hopefully on Apple, maybe Spotify, Facebook, and throughout. So yeah, we'll be getting it out there. And guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, have a great week. Stay gassed up.
Bye-bye.